Welcome to Mohammed's Criminal Enterprise, episode 14. We have been working our way through everything that can be known about the terrorist raid that established what we perceive wrongly as the religion of Islam. You see, there was nothing remotely religious about what occurred at Badr, which was the first blood in Islam, the first successful terrorist raid. It was nothing more than brutality, thievery, covetousness. Disgusting, really. Muhammad sought to rob the custodians of the Kaaba, the very people who had created Islam and every aspect of Islam, from the Kaaba to the pilgrimages, to the circumambulation, to the mosque, to the prostration prayer, the tax, every aspect of Islam, including the Ramadan fast, was developed and capitalized upon by the Quraysh, the very people that Muhammad sought to kill, to abduct, to ransom, and to rob. The very fact that this is the most important moment in Islam, the fact that this is memorialized in the Quran, where stealing becomes lawful and good, murder is a religious right, the annihilation of humankind becomes the mantra of Islam, and Allah becomes comes out from underneath the veil and is obviously Satan. You would think that this surah, the 8th, would be enough in and of itself to have caused the world to isolate Islam, to condemn the religion long, long ago. After all, in the first 100 years of the Islamic era, so much for my co-host Wookie, in the first 100 years of the Islamic era, Muslims annihilated, enslaved, and plundered 200 million people, 1/3 of the Earth's population, proving that Islam was indeed just as murderous as the Quran reads. It was the worst time in the planet's history. And so we will continue with our review of the Quran. This is Quran from the 8th surah, 8, the 39th statement in that surah. And qatil, fight them, until there is no more fitna, trials, to worship others, and dinu, religion, all of it is for Allah. But if they cease and desist, worshiping others beside Allah, then lo, Allah is seer of all they do. It is an order to fight. One does not fight without the intent of killing. Fight. For how long? Well, until there is no temptation to worship any other being other than Allah. Where Islam is the only religion allowed on earth, the only political system on earth. Muslims have been ordered, this is the 8th surah, the 39th verse, Muslims have been ordered to continue to fight until only Allah is worshipped and there is no other religion on the earth. And only when all resistance to Islam and to Allah, who is sadistic, demonic, duplicitous, a terrorist, a sadist spending all of his time in hell torturing people, nincompoop, really. Then until everyone capitulates and surrenders and agrees to worship this miserable wannabe God, then there is to be endless fighting. And it's only if they cease and desist, being unwilling to surrender to Islam, that the fighting stops, which means the fighting doesn't stop so long as there is a single person on the planet who is not a Muslim. And even then, it doesn't stop because Muslims are more adept at killing Muslims than they are at killing non-Muslims. It's genocide for the entire planet. Allah claims at the end, of course, that he is the all-seer of what they do, and he's not. Allah is the snake that slithered out of the garden. Allah has no capacity for omnipresence, no capacity to accomplish really anything, which is why Allah must urge Muslims to fight and kill for him, because he can't do anything on his own. There is not a single instance in the Quran or in reality where Allah accomplishes anything on his own. He is completely impotent. That's why I tell Muslims of the thousands of death threats that I have, if your God is so goddamn impressive, then he should know where I am and he should be able to take care of his own business. Have your God come out and kill me. I'm happy to go against Allah. But why would you prove that I'm right and kill for your impotent God? Well, in or out of context, the Quran is unequivocal. The Islamic war machine must continue to roll until every soul on earth submits to the religion of Allah. There are to be no exceptions, no appeasements, no compromises. It is surrender or die. And even the "but if they cease" phrase is irrelevant to the edict to fight non-Muslims until there are no more non-Muslims. The fighting only stops if they cease being non-Muslims. Therefore, there are no but ifs. And understand, this is the religion that suppresses women, that makes them walk around in garbage bags, that provides them with no rights, where they can be beaten and starved according to the Quran and the Hadith. This is the religion that is responsible for 90% of the world's terrorist acts. This is the religion of ignorance and of death. So this is an acknowledgement of the Pledge of Aqaba, which is the pledge to wage war against all mankind. This is Islam. This is why the religion must be stopped dead in its bloody tracks and isolated if the planet is to survive. Now, we learned previously when translating Quran 2, 193, Quran 2, 217, Quran 33, 214, and Quran 64, 15, in addition to Tabari, Volume 2, 98, that fitna is one of the most commonly mistranslated words in the Quran. While it means test or trial, it is commonly, albeit errantly, extrapolated to oppression and persecution in verses like Quran 38:39. And this is done so that Islam's unmitigated decree to fight and kill non-Muslims appears somehow tempered. However, these extrapolations of fitna are not rational, because a parent's children cannot be the source of your persecution. And yet Quran 64:15 says, your wealth and your children are only a fitna, a trial and tribulation, to encourage sedition and disbelief, and Allahu with him a great reward. Also, the following challenges cannot be raised to the level of oppression, not even with a 5-stage clinger. Tabari 298. Islam consists of 30 parts, and no one ever fitna tested with this obligation and carried it out except Abraham. God said, and Abraham, who paid his debt, granting him immunity for the fire. Other scholars have said that the 5 commands were the 10 practices of Islam, 5 being in the head and 5 being in the body. Those in the head are trimming the mustache, rinsing the mouth, cleansing the nostrils with water, using the toothstick, and parting the hair with the fingers. Those in the body are paring the nails, shaving the pubic hair, circumcision, plucking the armpit, and washing off traces of feces and urine. End quote. Let that sink in. That's the fitna. The other 3 recent instances of fitna in the Quran parallel its use in this context. They reveal Quran 2:193, and fight them until there is no more fitna, temptation, trials, and sedation towards disbelief, and religion is only for ilahi. Then, if they cease and desist, then no hostility except against al-zalim, the cruel lords and repressive tyrants. There again, it cannot be oppression. Quran 2:217. They question you about qital, fighting, in the al-haram, the sacred or the forbidden month, depending on how you want to interpret the word that says both. Say, fighting therein is a akbar, a greater, but hindering to prevent access to the cause of Allahi and disbelief in him, and al-masjidi, al-haram, and driving out its people from it, akbar, greater, omitted. Near Allahi and al-fitna, trials and wrong belief, akbar, greater than al-katli, the slaughter. So 3 places that Akbar was used in this statement. Allah forgot to say what was Akbar. Akbar is an adjective. It designates something that is greater, older, bigger. And in this case, Allah forgot what was supposedly Akbar. But nonetheless, the Akbar is greater than al-katli, the slaughter. The slaughter. Quran 33:14. If they had entered upon them from its sides, and they had been exhorted to al-fitna, the trial and test leading to the treachery of renouncing Islam, they surely would have done it, and they would only have hesitated a little. This is spoken to Muslims, about Muslims. In fact, these were peaceful Muslims. These were the Muslims who wouldn't fight their own family members when their family members came to Yathrib to hold Muhammad accountable so that he would stop terrorizing them. And so they can't be the ones with trial, with persecutions and subjugations and all of those kinds of things. No, they were peaceful Muslims. Therefore, not only was the translation of Quran 8:39 correct, and fight them until there is no more fitna, trials, and worshiping others, and the religion, all of it will all be for Ilahi, Allah, No matter the definition of fitna, the war on humankind continues until everyone submits to Islam. And that is not going to happen. And I am here to tell you I will personally preclude that from happening. In the Kamal Omar rendering of this verse, he dispensed with translating and tried transliterating the statement because, well, Allah knows best. The Kamal Omar translation, and make qital against them until there remains no fitna, and religion becomes in its entirety dedicated to Allah. That was interesting. He wrote Allah's name, and yet Allah wasn't actually named in it. And he did transliterate qital, which means fighting, and fitna, which means trial or test, and yet he translated dina, which is religion, and gave it a capitalization. The case of Farouk Malik, in his translation, fitna became mischief, while al-dinu, the religion, was transliterated. These guys are all over themselves because no one can actually figure out what Allah was trying to say because, well, Allah wasn't literate. Farouk Malik, O believers, fight them until there is no more mischief, and the deen of Allah, and he put in parentheses, the way of life prescribed by Allah, it's dina, it means religion, is established completely. So there you go. The next is an honest rendering, as is the following, at least up to the point that the author added his sentiments within the parenthetical. This is from Abdul Masjid Daryabadi. Fight against them until there are no temptations, and their obedience be holy unto Allah. Submission to Allah. And be aware, Allah ain't no God. Allah can be equated to the snake that slithered out of the Garden of Eden after beguiling Chawa, the wily serpent, if you will, or directly with Hasatan, the adversary. But Allah cannot be equated to God. He is as dumb as a stone. Muhammad Maud Ghali provided this rendering, and fight them till there is no temptation, in parentheses, sedition, persecution, until the religion is all for Allah. Well, temptation is what the word means, which is why he put sedition, persecution in parentheticals. Well, rendering fitna as idolatry wasn't justified by Muhammad Sharwar. The Muhammad Taqi Usmani translation was reasonably accurate, as is the Sha'il International. Muhammad Sharwar. Fight them so that idolatry will not exist anymore and God's religion will stand supreme. There's no mention of the Arabic word for God in the statement. There's no mention of idolatry in the statement. There is no mention of stand supreme in the statement. But you see, the Quran is so badly written that Muslims simply project their sentiments onto it. And yet they claim that it's the perfect book sent down by Allah. If this is Allah's rendering as it was written, as it has come down to us, as it was spoken and then written 100 years later, then you can be assured that Allah is a nincompoop. Muhammad Taqi Usmani, and fight them until there is no more fitna, mischief in the parenthetical, and total obedience becomes for Allah. How does it becomes? I don't know, but nonetheless. Then Sha'il International, and fight them until there is no fitna, and the religion, all of it, is for Allah. These variations of fitna validate my point, which is that there are as many renderings as there are translators. Here's some more just to prove the point. Ali Kuli Kara'i. Fight them until faithfulness is no more and religion becomes exclusively for Allah. Faithlessness is how they want to render fitna. Then there is Ali Bakhtari Nejed. Fight them until there is no more conspiracy. Yes, and then in the parenthetical, and turmoil, and religion, way of life, all of it will be for God alone. No mention of God. Allah is not God. And there is no, I don't think Allah could spell conspiracy if you spotted him, the C, the N, the S, the P, the R, the C, and the Y. Now, one of the points that maybe should be obvious at this point is that not only is the entire Quran presented in goddamn religion, every word of it, and not only is it set into the context of Muhammad's life and reordered chronologically, and not only are the translations that I present in the Quran from the most respected interlinears, so they are as exacting as can be, but that I accessed and studied some 66 Quran translations in putting together this analysis of Islam. So here is Ali Bakhtari Nejed. Fight them until there is no more conspiracy, as I said, and turmoil and religion, way of life. All of it will be for God alone. Well, none of that was actually in the text. Mohamad Shafi. Fight them until revolt/insurrection stops and the way of life is restored in its entirety to Allah. Remind you, Allah's name isn't in there. God's title isn't in there. There is no reference to revolt or insurrection. And it doesn't even say stops. And it most certainly doesn't speak to a way of life or restoration of anything. It's as if the text doesn't matter. This reminds me a lot of what we read in the Christian New Testament, where there is very little correlation sometimes between what you read in an English translation and what's actually in the text. If they actually presented the way the text reads of the Quran, if they were literal about it, no one in their right mind would believe it. Ahmed Ali is the most popular paraphrase of the Quran. It is used by those who are proponents of Islam to infer that Islam is a lovely and peaceful religion. So, Ahmed Ali, so fight them until all opposition ends and obedience is wholly God's. Well, if they had removed gods and put in Allah, then this is not a very good attempt at mediation, is it? So fight them until all opposition ends and obedience is wholly, well, Allah's. I'll leave you with two more. The first from an Islamic novelist, and the second from the team responsible for the Noble Quran, which is the most popular on earth. Dr. Muhammad Tahir ul Qadri opined, and, in parentheses, O people of truth, continue your fight against these chieftains and oppression and terrorism for the establishment of enduring peace. Yeah, you're supposed to fight these, and now in the parenthetical, because it's not in the text, the chieftains of oppression, which would be Muslims, and terrorism, which would be Muslims, for the establishment of enduring peace, which is definitely not Muslims, until there does not remain. Well, remain is in the parenthetical. Any disruption and din the system of, this is the parenthetical now, of compliance with law. Is devoted to Allah alone. Maybe you're getting the gist that somebody said, well, that's not what the Quran says, and I'm going to quote, this and this, and they're just absolutely lying through their teeth. The Quran is an absolute mess. It's the worst book ever written. And the reason I consulted 66 translations and composing Goddamn Religion is so that readers would know how big a mess this really is, and how Muslims are projecting what they want it to say on it, depending on the agenda. The Mushin Khan and Mohamad al-Hilai wrote, and these are the guys that composed the Noble Quran, which is the most heavily printed in the world, the most highly distributed the world over. It comes from the Fard Foundation. It's an Saudi Arabian choice, that is the Saudi Arabian Quran. And it is also now the source of the interlinear, the word for word rendering of the Quran that actually came to exist, because when I wrote Prophet of Doom, one of the ways that I mocked Islamic scholarship, the lack thereof, is to say that the tools that I had to translate the Torah and prophets from Yahweh were ubiquitous. There were literally hundreds of lexicons, interlinears, and all manner of tools, to even grammar tools, you name it, to help explain the text. But at Islam, there were no interlinears. No. And as I embarrassed them over these lack of tools, and also integrated concordances and dictionaries, my nemesis at my university, the Muslim Student Association, MSA, decided that, well, they would create one. And they did. It is devastating in its application against Islam, because it proves that the reason it didn't exist is because it is exceedingly destructive of the Quran's credibility. Anyway, this is what the Muhsin Khan and Mohamad al-Hilai translation reads. Fight them until there is no more fitna, in parentheses, disbelief and polytheism, i.e. worshiping others beside Allah, end of parenthetical, and the religion, parenthetical, worship, will all be for Allah alone, parenthetical, in the whole world, end of parenthetical. But if they cease, parenthetical, worshiping others besides Allah, end of parenthetical, then certainly Allah is all-seer of what they do. I'm here to tell you, if you need to fill in the blanks so that your God appears literate, so that your God appears like he actually can talk, then your God has a real problem. In fact, your God isn't a God. Why didn't that dawn on the people that had, how many extraneous words that they had to add to this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. They added 20 extraneous words to try to make sense of this text, which basically says Muslims must fight non-Muslims until there are no non-Muslims, and the only religion in the world is Islam. Well, is there any wonder why Muhsin Khan is the favorite translator of the Islamic jihadists everywhere? It was clear to him, as it should be to you, that Muslims are commanded by their God in the Quran to fight and kill all non-Muslims until the only religion is Islam, period. No ifs or buts about it. The war only ends if the disbelievers become Muslims or dead. Those are the only two options. Muslims or dead. That's what the Quran just said. So long as this verse remains in the Quran, Islam isn't salvageable. It cannot be endured. It cannot be appeased. It must be exposed and condemned, then either quarantined or expunged. It is a deadly plague. By way of additional affirmation, Ibn Ishaq, the first imam to record the message of fundamental Islam, reveals that the first to hear this surah interpreted the verse in the following way. Ishaq, as translated by Gulim in the Life of Allah's Messenger, published by Oxford University Press in the 1950s, reads page 324. He said, "Fight them so that there is no more rebellion and religion. All of it is for Allah only. Allah must have no rivals." Now, if you're the one and only God, let's just play along for a moment, because Allah claims that there is no ilah but He, that He is the only God. How could He have a rival? But you see, Allah does have a rival, because Allah is actually the adversary, and Allah's rival is Yahweh. So He said, fight them so that there is no more rebellion and religion. All of it is for Allah only. Allah must have no rivals. This confirmation of Islam's intent should be plastered on Joe Biden's and Donald Trump's forehead, on the door next to the State Department, the Pentagon, Capitol, White House, all of these places. It should actually be plastered on the Knesset so that they understand the nature of their enemy. It should be posted at the doorway to every academic institution. It should be the welcome mat for those who wish to post on X. And should you be curious as to what Allah intends to do with all of the murdered non-Muslims, Ishaq 324. Allah said, "Leave me to deal with the liars. I have fetters and fire and food which chokes." Leave me to deal with them. I have fetters and fire and food which chokes. Leave me to deal with them. What does that mean? Can you think this through? I know we live in a world where education has become indoctrination and people can't think anymore. But I want you to pause for a moment when you read, leave me to deal with them. Leave me to deal with these liars. I have fetters and I have fire and I have food which chokes. What does that say about Allah? Where is Allah if He has fetters and fire? Who is Allah if His food chokes? Who is Allah if He's the one implementing the torments? Surely you can think this through, right? Even Grok, if he were not bribed by his ownership by Saudi Arabia, could probably reason this one through. If Allah is saying, leave me to deal with the liars, I have fetters and fire and food which chokes, Allah is in hell. And if Allah is in hell and He is the one imposing the tortures, then Allah is Satan. It is that simple. Unfortunately, Satan was reasonably adept at motivating merciless murderers and religious fanatics. Ishaq 3:24. Allah taught them how to divide the spoil. He made it lawful and said, a fifth of the booty belongs to the apostle. By the way, what's going to happen now? Did Allah bother to think through the fact that his boy was going to die? And then once he died 1,400 years ago, how can you give a fifth of the stolen booty to the apostle? Didn't he have a contingency plan post Mohamad? Or was all Allah and Mohammed were trying to do was to bribe enough evil men to live by the sword, to cut off heads, to rape women, to abduct men, to wage war on all that were around them, to be wholly and completely merciless, to the point that they would have no rivals within their community in Arabia. And then they become so vicious, and with all that they had stolen, with all the people they had enslaved, that they could fight the war of compulsion in Arabia to make all of Arabia Muslim, and therefore ruthless, murdering terrorists. And then out of Arabia at a time when the Romans, via the Byzantines, and the Persians had beat each other to a pulp, that they spilled out of Arabia. And in the first 100 years of Islam, abducted, raped, pillaged, enslaved, and annihilated 1/3 of the earth's population. Allah taught them how to do these things. In this case, since Muslims must pursue non-Muslims and either kill or convert them, by the way, there was no conversion speech here. Just kill them till the only religion is Islam. So it wasn't give them the opportunity to convert to Islam so that you don't have to kill them. No, it just says kill them until the only religion is Islam, which means you're not waiting for them to make a confession. You're not coming at them and saying, I want to preach Islam to you so that once you know Islam, you will accept this lovely religion that motivates terrorism and murder and plunder and thievery and the slave trade and human trafficking and the abuse of women. That let me sell you on the merits of our religion so I don't have to kill you. No, there was no hint of that. Fight and kill them until the only religion is Islam. So the only people that survive are those who are doing the killing. That's what it says. Muslims must pursue non-Muslims to the death. Those turning away would be running for their lives. Quran 8:40. And if they turn away, then know that Allah, your protector, the protector, excellent, and the helper, extraordinaire. Allah had a real ego problem. Verse after verse of the Quran ends with Allah making some braggadocious claim, something that Yahweh never has to do because he knows who he is, and so does anybody who reads the Torah and prophets. But Allah, because he's a fake, has to constantly tell everyone how wonderful he is. Kind of like listening to a speech by Donald Trump. He has to tell you how wonderful he is with about every fourth or fifth word. Allah, protector, excellence, except maybe Allah was on vacation in the aftermath of October 7th when the IDF held Gazan Muslims accountable. Maybe he was not the helper extraordinaire at that point. Maybe he was only the helper extraordinary when they were mutilating and raping Jews. Oh, the producer has raised her lovely hand.
Maybe he was on the shitter.
Well, that would be, she's quoting from my buddy Elia in his showdown with the religious and political establishment of Israel, mocked the Lord and said that the reason that the Lord was unresponsive, the Lord being a false god, Satan actually, the reason he was unresponsive is that he was either taking a nap or he was taking a dump. It's just truly amazing. Well, of course it isn't true. The king of megalomaniacs is seen here promising to protect and help his mass assassins as they stalk their prey. And even though he seems preoccupied, patting himself on the back, nonetheless, he is their helper extraordinaire. Now, since the Rasuli, the messenger, took a dirt nap 1400 years ago, and is nothing but worm rot at this point. And since the snake of Islam has no hands, what are Muslims to do with the surplus booty? Why didn't Lillahi provide his slaves with a post-mortem message? Well, he wasn't thinking that far in advance because, well, the Quran would no longer matter that far in advance. Once he had a significant number of people motivated to kill for him, well, the rest is exactly as we witness it today. Quran 8:41. And know that whatever you attain as war booty, verily, 1/5 of it is assigned to Lillahi and to the Rasul, to the messenger, and to the near relations, put in parentheses, of Muhammad, of course, and then also in parentheses, and also the orphans, and then I added this, like Muhammad, and the needy and the wayfarer, also addressing Muhammad. If you have believe, yes, if you have believe in Ilahi and that which we sent down, we have schizophrenia here that Ilahi has a multiple personality complex, which we sent down to our slave, that would be Muhammad is the slave of we, who is Allahi, or is Allahi supposed to be Allah, and that we means that Allahi, Allah, and Muhammad were a team, and they spoke with one voice, so therefore they were a we, but then in that case, who is the slave? On the day of Criterion, when the two forces met, it puts in parentheses here, the Battle of Badr, and Allahu on everything all-powerful, end quote. We're talking about how some ruthless sand pirates, bloodthirsty thugs, seeking blood, seeking the abduction and kidnapping of kin for ransom, and just outright thievery, attacked a civilian caravan. And that's called the Day of Criterion. So the criterion is, if you're a thug, you're a killer, you engage in human trafficking, then you're a good guy. And if you're trying to make a living and minding your own business, and you're the victim of these murderous Muslims, well, then your criterion is that you get to be tortured by Allah. That's the Day of Criterion. And the two forces, we're talking about militants and merchants. And Allahu on everything, all powerful, except Allahu didn't do shit. Previously, I stated that the raucous raid at Badr was the turning point of Islam, the time and place where the failed religion was resurrected. And as a testament to terror, obviously, Allahi agrees, calling this episode the Day of Criterion. I don't make this stuff up. I know Islam, the Quran, Allah, Muhammad, and understand them better than anyone alive, better than any Muslim, better than rock. But that's not saying much. Beyond the fact that he was a greedy bastard, the reason why the chief terrorist needed stolen booty is because he was deploying mercenaries under the guise of being Muslims. And they were as loyal as a mosquito at a nudist colony. They were bloodsuckers after all, and didn't much care who provided the next meal. Should there ever be a lull in the action, lean times when the looting dries up, the larcenist needs to improvise by doling out prior gains. Quran 8:42. When you, and parentheticals, Muslims, were on the near side of the valley, and they on the far side, and the caravan on the ground lower than you, even if you had made a mutual appointment to meet, you would certainly have failed in the appointment. But, in parentheticals, you met that Allahu might accomplish a matter already ordained, that those who were to be destroyed might be destroyed after a clear sign, and those who were to live might live after a clear proof. And surely Allah is all hearer, all knower. We'll continue in a moment, but I'd like to analyze this for you. It's my job. So when you were on the near side of the valley, one side of this ravine, and they were on the far, and they were just minding their business. They were having an adult beverage. They were singing songs. They had some dancing girls with them, according to the text. They were a bunch of overweight, balding merchants, businessmen. And actually, they were the custodians of the Kaaba. They were the inventor of Islam. So it says here, even if you had made it a mutual appointment. Hey, Dad, you don't mind if we kill you, do you? Oh, no problem, son. Let's plan to meet at high noon at Badar. And, well, you can slice off my head. You can abduct your brother. Why don't we just make an appointment and we'll get this done? So yeah, if you had made a mutual appointment to meet, certainly you would have failed. Probably. We want to meet you to kill you. How does that sound to you? What? Oh, you're great. What time? And this is the dumbest wannabe God in the history of wannabe gods. And there's lots of wannabe gods. Allahu is telling you you would have failed in your appointment because Allahu must accomplish a matter that is already ordained. What? Why would Allah have to accomplish a matter if it was already ordained? If it's already ordained, it's already accomplished. There's no purpose to accomplishing something that is already ordained. Do you have any concept what predestination means? If it's already ordained, you don't have to do it. Yes, Miss Producer?
It's for Allah who, for him, for who, for Muhammad.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. So, no. The idea of appointment is stupid. And, well, there's no purpose in pursuing something that is already ordained. Allahu can't accomplish something that is already ordained. And then his purpose here is just lovely. What a lovely God. This is written in the Quran now. His purpose was to destroy those who were destroyed. That means those who were killed, who were mutilated, who were hacked to pieces. That was the agenda. That is what Allah ordained, is the destruction, the death, the obliteration of the custodians of the Kaaba and Islam. And they might be destroyed, decimated, after a clear sign. What was the clear sign? There were no signs. No, not a single. If there had been a sign, no one could read it. They were all illiterate, including Muhammad. And obviously Allah as well, because he couldn't produce a book either. There were no clear signs. No signs of any kind. There are never any signs in Islam. And those who were to live might live after a clear proof. What, a clear proof that Allah is disgusting, that he is demonic, that he is sadistic, that he is deadly?
He is Muhammad's imaginary friend.
No, my producer says I'm Muhammad's imaginary friend. No, I know there are a lot of people, and I was once among them, who thought of Allah as being Muhammad's alter ego, but that is not true. Allah Satan. Muhammad was demon possessed. Muhammad was a willing accomplice, but the agenda that is in the Quran is only partially Muhammad's agenda. Muhammad's agenda was pedophilia, rape, thievery, sadistic murder, that sort of thing. It was Allah who wanted to annihilate all humankind, beginning with Jews. It was Allah who sought to be worshipped as if he were a god. Quran 8:43. When Allah who showed them in your dream as few. Now, Allah who didn't show anybody in a dream. And it was only after the event that Muhammad claimed to have a dream, but Muhammad isn't a them, unless Muhammad is also suffering from schizophrenia. In your dream, as few. If he had shown them to you as many, you would surely have been discouraged, and you would surely have disputed in the matter. But Allah who saved, Allah, all-knower of what is in the breasts. Now, the fact of the matter is, at Badr, there were 40 some odd merchants killed. And there were 40 some odd merchants abducted for ransom. According to the Islamic tradition, that would be 84. They were either unarmed or lightly armed. They were all old, aging, balding men. Most were intoxicated. They were having a party out in the desert. If that is considered a mighty force, then Allah is a really wee little god. And Genghis Khan, Muhammad is not. So if it had told them there was going to be 84 merchants there, drunk as a skunk, singing songs out there in the desert, having a good old time, well, you wouldn't have gone. No, Muslims do not have the courage to confront 80 merchants for the purpose of robbing them. You would have disputed among yourselves. But Allahu, he saved you. Saved you from what? From being nice, from being kind, from being moral? Quran 8:44. And when you met, in parentheses, the disbelievers on the day of the battle of Badr, there was no battle. This was a skirmish in the sand between militants and merchants. A battle is what armies fought or fight in wars. There was no war, and the opposing side was not comprised of soldiers. If anything, they were very lightly armed. They were merchants. They were camel jockeys. And when you met, and well, this part is actually not in the Quran because, well, the Quran requires the hadith. Without the hadith, you wouldn't know this stuff. That's why I shared this hadith with you. I didn't have to put that into the Quran text because I've already told you exactly what this was all about. So when you met, he showed them to you as few in your eyes, and he made you as few in their eyes, so that Allahu might accomplish a matter already ordained and destined, and to Allah he return the matters. Now, what's the purpose? Why would you make 84 men sound like, well, less than 84? You're out there with a very large, hundreds of men under arms to hunt down and kill them. And so, and you've taken them by surprise. So what's the deal about making them appear as few? Are Muslims incapable of any heroism? Well, not that heroism in this case, because, well, they were robbing people. And then why would you show them, Allahi, as few in your eyes? Why? Because he wanted them to stay there and fight for their lives as opposed to just run away. And they tried to do that, and the Muslims chased them down and killed them. And the matter that Allahu was trying to accomplish was bloodletting. Now, it's stupid to say that these perpetrators could have made a mutually acceptable appointment to meet with their prey. And are we to assume that the blood and booty represent the clear signs of Islam? Is the destruction of life a sign of this God? Is the salvation of Islam the result of being misled so that you are murderous? I think the answers are pretty obvious, don't you? Now, beyond these questions and concerns, according to the Quran, the Islamic wannabe God instigated mass murder and abduction. To fulfill his bloodlust, he claims to have deliberately deceived his slaves, luring them into a dangerous situation. So what do you think Allah might have also deceived Muslims about? What other dangerous situation has the Islamic wannabe God lured Muslims? To hell? And if that were not sufficiently demonic, to prove Allah's true identity, the wannabe God, who is desperate to reverse his fate, reveals that the entire murderous episode, including the mutilation of men, was preordained. But should that be so, why did he have to mislead his slaves? You know, it's embarrassing when a man is infinitely smarter than a wannabe God. Sorry to embarrass you, Allah. No, I'm not. Clearly, the ungod's lust for carnage took precedence over the non-prophet's yearning for loot. Everyone has a soft spot, a longing, a desire, something that they crave. Even the devil. And the devil craves death. While his Rasuli, his messenger, craves loot. Now, should anyone listening to this believe that Muhammad was an honorable and moral man and that Allah might be God, how does either square with the evidence of what occurred here and their confessions? The non-prophet was only interested in an easy score, the maximum plunder with the least amount of effort. The ungod wanted believers to murder their relatives and their neighbors, the very custodians of the religion of Islam, in an act of revenge to validate his reinterpretation of their religion. He would steal their lives and their religion. What else would he steal? It was proof that Islam is a criminal enterprise and that Muhammad was now head of a crime syndicate. And while snake dens are not known to be overly secure, Satan was the banker. I find these things unacceptable, which is why I oppose the Quran and the religion of Islam. How about you? Quran 8:45. O believers, when you meet fa'atan, a party, a faction, or force, whether a community or a group, take a firm stand against them. And remember, Allah much with tongue and mind, so that you may be successful. Quran 8:46, and obey Allah and his messenger, and do not dispute, lest you lose courage and strength, depart, and you falter and be steadfast. Surely Allah is with those who are, well, I probably meant to say steadfast, but who maybe not are, persevere. So, Muslims, if you meet anyone, a party, a faction, a force, whether it's a community or a group, take a firm stand against them. No matter who you meet, you must be against them. When? Then, now, forevermore. And always remember Allahu Akbar, so that you might be successful in, well, taking their lives, abducting them for ransom, and showing just how murderous you can be. And obey Allah. Oh, yes, you need to obey me, because if you don't obey me, I got nothing. I got no hands. I got nothing. I mean, my whole gig is for you to believe that I'm actually a God, and you need to go off and kill for me because I can't do squat on my own. Oh, and oh, by the way, you need to obey my messenger. But how do you obey my messenger if everything that my messenger said is in the hadith? But if you incorporate the hadith so that you can obey the messenger and therefore obey the Quran, then Islam is the most despicable religion in the history of humankind, because Muhammad was the most perverted idiot to ever claim to speak for God. A rapist, a pedophile, a mass murderer, a terrorist, a thief, a sadist, a psychopath. There you have it. You have to obey Allah, and Allah just said, you must fight and kill for me. You must fight until there are no more non-Muslims. You have to obey Muhammad's orders, the messenger's orders, and, well, he was the most perverted and disgusting person who ever lived. And of course, this is all a call to war, a call to fight against all mankind, and Allah can't handle the fact that you would dispute with him or Muhammad and lose courage and lose strength. So clearly, fighting isn't a mental gymnastics. It isn't about a spiritual struggle, because one does not lose courage or strength and falter in a spiritual struggle. It's all about fighting to kill, annihilating all non-Muslims, which means you continue to fight and kill every non-Muslim. Be steadfast. As is the case with any force, Islam was not democratic. Muhammad was a dictator. In the Sirah, the biography we read, Ishaq 325, Muslims, fight in Allah's cause. Stand firm and you will prosper. Help the Prophet, obey him, give him your allegiance, and your religion will be victorious. Well, they did. Muhammad's Muslims poured out of Arabia after the War of Compulsion, when they forced all Arabs to either accept Islam or die. And they spilled out as a tsunami of blood, killing, enslaving, plundering, raping 200 million people, a third of the Earth's population. This was the golden era of Islam because of all the gold they stole. And the lands that were conquered by Islam, colonized by them, put under Islamic apartheid, suffered genocide under Islam, are still occupied by them. This is how the religion is supposed to be victorious. I never thought that religions were supposed to be victorious unless religions are war manifestos. I mean, the only way that the religion can be victorious by fighting in Allah's cause is for Islam to be a war manifesto. But not everyone capitulated, so bad Muslim peaceniks needed to have their beaks tweaked and their olive branches crushed. There was no room for dissension or moderation in Islam. Quran 8:47, and this will be our last citation in this episode of Muhammad's Criminal Enterprise. There's only so much of this I can take. I do this because there's no one else to do it, and it must be done. Israel and the world at large must be protected from the menace of Islam, from this death cult, from Allah's sadistic torment, from his desire to perpetrate genocide, beginning with Jews. So I do this for God's people. I do this for the survival of the planet. Quran 8:47. And do not be like those who come out of their homes boastfully, showing off to the people while hindering from the way of Allah and Allah who is encircling and encompassing and closing upon all they do. So after telling us that all of the good Muslims fight and they're steadfast in fighting, they pursue all non-Muslims, no matter what the nature of the group or entity is, and that they follow Allah's orders without questioning them to fight and kill all non-Muslims. That those who come out of their homes and think they're better than Allah, that boast that, no, we're not going to be murderous, that those who hinder the jihadi nature of Islam, those who don't fight in the way of Allah, those who claim to be Muslims but are peaceful, Allah is encircling them. Allah is encompassing them. Allah is enclosing upon them. He knows all that they can do, and He is clear. These peaceful Muslims cease to be Muslims. They become hypocrites and apostates. Allah demands that the good Muslims kill them so that He can torture them in hell. Not only has Allah plotted and predestined this entire affair to promote Himself, He has instilled within His hooligans a false sense of superiority. Then He anesthetized their conscience such that there was nothing better than a good slaughter. I thank you for listening.